Yeah, so basically, yeah, recording in progress. It's good that the prayer was not recorded. But I will say that we walk from one extreme to another extreme here on here in grace and truth, and this is how we do it because I experienced it myself firsthand. From one extreme to another extreme. So last time when I taught 27 chapters, just the book of Isaiah, 27 chapters. And each chapter is longer than this book. And this week I've given one book, the size of one chapter in the book of Isaiah. And so it's basically 3 chapters, the book of Habakkuk, one of the minor prophets, but his message is so powerful that message transformed the world. One verse completely changed the trajectory of the entire Western world. One verse from one book. Think about it for a second. That is the book that completely transformed trajectory of the entire Western world. And the reason why we sit in the place we sit, and the reason why United States is the United States that it is now, is because of that one verse in the book of Habakkuk. How this one tiny book can completely change the trajectory of the entire world. So that is basically the extreme, from one extreme to another extreme. You're welcome. Okay. So, sorry? What was it? Yeah. So.
You built the excitement. Tell us.
Okay. Okay. Good. Exactly. But this is how majorly exciting. Everybody is on the same page. So now let's find out what that was and how that happened. Okay. So when we talk about the book of Habakkuk and what we will do today, we will actually read the entire book together. And we will do what is done also in Jewish tradition, which is we will basically just go over it in the form of explanation and just basically it's a Talmudic literature. We will go through verses and then we will explain them, okay? Because this is how we can do it because it's a small book, and we will miss only one section. And that section you can probably read at home if you would like to. So now, the most important message that we need to keep in mind when we study the book of Habakkuk is this. In every era, from exile to empire, from Rome to reformers, from Auschwitz to the present, Habakkuk gives voice to the faithful who wait. So this is very critical. This is what we absolutely need to grasp. If we do not grasp this now, we will miss the entire book of Habakkuk. So this is what we need to, once again, every year from exile, Babylonian exile, because this is where the book actually originated, from Babylonian exile to empire, from Rome to reformers. And there is an answer to this first excitement that I built also here in this statement. This is how the world is changing. One verse that changed completely the trajectory of the Western world is also here. From exile to empire, from Rome to reformers, from Auschwitz to the present, Habakkuk gives voice to the faithful who wait. So now, what we will do, we'll take 3 steps. First, we will very briefly take a look at the structure of the book, very briefly. Then we will take a look at how the book of Habakkuk was received, how it was interpreted, and why it became so critical that people saw that this book is changing society. This book is changing philosophy. This book is changing everything around them. And this is how major it is. And then we will also we will see the message for ourselves, to the message of the book of Habakkuk to us. Okay. So now, this is the structure. Just 3 chapters. So it starts with the first statement, first complaint of Habakkuk. So this complaint is very clear, and it's only 4 verses. So this book is the book of cry to God. Shout. It's not just cry, I'm crying. No, I shout to God. God, what you do doesn't make any sense. You're not doing it right. This is basically the first statement. This is the first statement. So it's first complaint, and it's not a complaint about, oh Lord, I see my enemies are just trying to destroy me. No, he doesn't say that. He says, you are not doing it right. You are wrong. So this is basically what the first statement is. First complaint towards God. Number one. Second, we see, so it's a dialogue. Do you see? So I raised my complaint to the superior. And what does the superior do? What does he do? He responds. So complaint, Yahweh responds. Then what happens? What do we see next? Second complaint, because that response probably did not fit what he expected to hear. And then, so we see the second complaint. After the second complaint, what comes? What comes after the second complaint? Another response. Do you see it's complaint, Yahweh's response, second complaint, Yahweh's response, and then Habakkuk, which is Habakkuk chapter 2, 6 to 20, woe, oracles, 5 woes against Babylon. And this is not just 5 woes against Babylon, but it's a universal eschatology, which is against everything that embodies Babylon. And then finally, a psalm of theophany and trust. This is the conclusion. Then what is happening is just then Habakkuk realizes that he cannot receive any answer from God, literally. And then he says, you know what? Let me sing a song. let me create a song. This is what he basically does. Do you see what is happening? So now this structure is very critical. Why this structure is very critical? Because it's exactly the same structure that we see in the book of Jeremiah. It's exactly the same structure that we see in all other prophets. Because prophets, they do not write history. Prophets are not interested in history. The book of Chronicles, some other books, they probably just only the book of Chronicles. The book of Chronicles and 1st and 2nd Kings. Nothing else is history. Because everything else is just me trying to figure out how it all works. How this everything makes sense. So do you see what is happening? So that's why when we see at every book, every prophetic books, it's almost always in the form of a dialogue. Almost always in the form of a dialogue. And it's very important for us to catch when that voice from the prophet changes to God, to Yahweh, when Yahweh responds. Do you see what is happening? So Habakkuk raises something. Do we catch when the transition happens from Habakkuk to Yahweh responding? So this is what we will see now. And then basically this is basically how we need to perceive it. Dialogue, from dialogue, then to oracles against, or woes against Babylon or all nations and all injustice. God speaks about injustice and how he might deal with it. And then the song of praise, or the song of theophany, the song, just song, just sound. Does it make sense? Dialogue, woes, song. So this is how we need to take a look at this. Now, so we took a look at the structure. Now let's take a look at the reception of the book of Habakkuk. So if you look at the reception of the book of Habakkuk, we could highlight a couple of very critical elements. Number one is just there was ancient Israel. So in ancient Israel, this is when it was first received. So how people heard the book of Habakkuk. Okay, so the book, we heard it, something is incredible is happening. Now, does it make any changes? Does it make any changes in us, in our lives? So that is the first question. It's the first audience. So then there was the second audience. Do you remember the group of Qumran, community of Qumran, Essenes, the ones who lived in the desert? So they were the ones who also received. Remember the Isaiah scroll that I talked to you about in the museum, Israel Museum? So this is the community of Qumran. They were also fascinated by the book of Habakkuk, so much so that that was the same question that they were asking: why, Lord, you are so unjust? And the reason here is why you unjust, because these Romans, Kittim or Babylonians, they took over Jerusalem, and these priests who knelt before Romans and said, do what you want to do. They gave everything, and then we are left, we just people. We are hiding in the desert, and we are not given the power to rule justly. And what do you see what is happening now? So they also read the book of Habakkuk as the critical message. And they were seeing everything that the book of Habakkuk talks about, but they were applying it to whom? To them. Now, then we move to the next. So this is how the book it was received in Qumran. Now we also come to the New Testament period. In the New Testament, there is one verse in the book of Habakkuk that is quoted by Paul 3 times. Yes, you got it. And what is that verse? Just shall live by faith. The just shall live by faith. The just shall live 3 times by Paul. So why? Because for Paul, it was the most critical message. Just shall live not by works, but by faith. So do you see how amazing it is? How it changes the course of history? So now that was not the end. Then there is rabbinical Judaism that also reinterprets the book of Habakkuk. Right after the New Testament period, they talk about covenantal loyalty, and they say, no, God will still prevail in spite of the fact that we are dispersed. We are asked to leave Rome. Now, so then church fathers, they also talked about judgment and liturgy. Now, then there's continuation of this idea of judgment and liturgy also in the book of Habakkuk, and the songs were created. Now, here we are again. Do you see what is happening here? What is this period? Reformation. Luther. So do you see, before Reformation, the medieval ages, Middle Ages in the Reformation, do you remember what happened with Martin Luther? What was that one verse that completely changed the course of Western world?
Just shall live by faith.
Say it again.
Just shall live by faith.
There's just will live by faith. Do you see what is happening now? And it comes from where? From the book of Habakkuk. Do you see how incredible that is? So that verse completely changes the course of history now. Now, this was not the end. So this is now we are here in Reformation. Then we come to Enlightenment, that modern era, and the same wrestling continues now because philosophy raises very critical questions. Nietzsche asks a question: does God exist in this evil? God is dead, and everything is just this climate of philosophical dissatisfaction of philosophical answers. And even then, philosophers, non-atheist philosophers, they turn to the book of Habakkuk and say, do you see? This is exactly what they're wrestling with, nihilism. What God is doing. God is unjust. Nothing makes sense. And even here's the answer. Though everything fails, I will have some sort of hope, also coming from the book of Habakkuk. Now, this is not the end. The darkest period in history was actually in the 20th century for the reception of the book of Habakkuk. Where was it, do you think? Where was that, do you think? Right here. Where is it? Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Elie Wiesel, Simon Wiesenthal, other Jewish survivors of Holocaust, they tried to understand why that is happening through just 2 books in the Old Testament, the book of Job and the book of Habakkuk.
Makes sense.
The book of Job and the book of Habakkuk. Sure. That doesn't make sense. Lord, you're unjust. Because look at what is happening. We are suffering because this injustice is happening. So you are unjust. So do you see what is happening now? So this is how transformative this message of the book of Habakkuk is. But this was not the end. Because right before this, there was another era, which is the era of enslavement. And what do you think those slaves who were toiling like crazy when they were when their lords were saying the same statement? Arbeit macht frei. Work will set you free. When slave owners were saying exactly the same statement, work will set you free. Arbeit macht frei. Where do you think all those slaves were drawing that hope? The book of Habakkuk. They were singing the songs from the book of Habakkuk. But this was not the end, because during MLK days, Martin Luther King, they were also drawing from the book of Habakkuk. Because maybe, just maybe, God may still answer to this question, why? Why this world still doesn't make any sense? This is basically what the book of Habakkuk. Now let's get to the text. Do you see the reception? See what is happening? So now, this is what we need to do. We need to read this first statement, which is the first prophet, the first complaint. Can somebody read these 4 verses? And it needs to come from us, because this is us now speaking. Yes, please. Yeah.
The oracle that the prophet Habakkuk saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise. So the law is black and justice never prevails. The wicked surround the righteous, therefore judgment comes forth perverted.
So do you see what is happening? This is basically the most critical message of the book of Habakkuk. This is the first complaint. Do you see anything so what do you see in these verses? How does it resonate with you, or maybe doesn't resonate with you? How long shall I cry, and you will not listen? All my life I cry, and you do not listen. 2,000 years I cry, you do not listen. My children are now enslaved, you do not listen. My children are thrown into this burning. Yeah, it's just burning, basically. They're burned, they're killed, they're destroyed. You do not listen. Look at this injustice around me, you do not listen. You can look at this politics around me, you do not listen. Violence, and you will not save. When I cry out and I say something, violence towards me, somebody is robbing me right now. People are robbing me. And you do not listen. People would listen. You do not listen. Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble all around me in Texas and beyond? Destructions and violence are before me, strife and contention. The law becomes slack. The law doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. Your law doesn't work. No law works. And justice never prevails. We talk about justice, you talk about justice, you talk about humanity. Doesn't work. The wicked surround the righteous. Judgment comes forth perverted. There is no justice. This is the first statement. So let's take a look at the answer of God. God's answer. So can somebody? So we will read now 5 through 11. Can somebody read this? So this is the response of Yahweh. So this is the first statement. Now is the response of Yahweh.
Look at the nations and see, be astonished, for the work is being done in your days that you would not believe it if you were told. I am rousing the Chaldeans, that fierce and impetuous nation, who march through the breadth of the earth and seize dwellings not their own. Dread and fearsome are they. Their justice and dignity proceed from themselves. Continue.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Their horses are swifter than leopards, more menacing than wolves at dusk. Their Horses charge, their horsemen come from far away, and they fly like an eagle and swift to devour. Some interesting comparisons there. They all come for violence, with faces pressing forward. They gather captives like sand. At kings they scoff, and of the rulers they make sport. They laugh at every fortress and heap upon earth to take it. Then they swept like the wind. They transgress and become guilty. Their own might is their God.
Okay, yes. The response.
I don't know. I'm thinking about the first 4 verses. Now this is like these people are gonna fix whatever was wrong in the 4 verses, right? That's what it is. But the thing is, the mind is like God will intervene. Just think about it. In each time that is an injustice is done to me or somebody, God's work is to save the humanity through changing the minds. That's why Jesus died, you know. So each intervention, even if somebody does an injustice to me, that won't change the world. That won't save. I mean, even if somebody, you know, if God revenge and do justice right there, that's not the way. It's the universal.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you change, by changing the minds through, you know, it's something that I will.
Very good, very good. So very good point. So the question now is this answer a solution? Just think about it. Okay.
In 1:7, what stands out to me is they promote their own honor, meaning the Babylonians. And I think what Habakkuk is sharing with us are 2 things: promoting your own honor, but then it wraps up with fixing their eyes and their heart posture and song on Jesus. And so there's 2 places being shown here. Where's your heart? What are you promoting? And the Babylonians and these answers are, well, they were focused on themselves. And then the people in the midst of tragedy were fixing their eyes on Jesus through song. And that's what we do too. We like, this stuff happens in Texas. We don't have answers for it, but we got to sing in song and fix our eyes on Jesus and just know he wins. And that's easy to say, but it's really hard to do. And I think Habakkuk is showing us Jesus is giving, or God is giving answers on what not to do and what we can do and fix our eyes. And
This is powerful. Yeah. So let's do another one. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
I don't think those descriptions of the Babylonians are really accurate. I think it's to share a contrast more than they were riding horses that fast as leopards.
Right.
And I just think it's a description
or dynamic.
that's not real, but it's to get their attention.
Yeah, very good point. So what I see from 1, 2, and 3, so what is very critical for us to understand is this, because you see, there was first complaint of Habakkuk. So is God saying, this is the answer now? This is how I will make it right. Is this what God is trying to do? No, not at all. Not at all. Because this is what God is trying to say to Habakkuk. If you expect that some sort of justice will come from humans, absolutely not. If you vote for the president with the hope that he will make it right, you are in wrong. You're absolutely wrong. This is not going to happen. It never did. Show me at least Solomon, the greatest of all kings. Let's choose Solomon. He fails. David fails miserably. kills all people left and right, and he's not willing to build it. If you choose one or left or right or in the middle, you fail. No matter what you do, you fail. Because when you put trust in people and you think that this person will make it right, when he will bring Christianity back into the whatever that place is, you fail. Because this is not what happens. It never did. It just never did. And this is what God is saying very clearly to Habakkuk. You expect that there will be some people, some good rulers who will come and fix it? No. Look why. Because then they sweep by like the wind, they transgressors and become guilty. Their own mind is their God. Because humans always think that their own mind is their God. This is it. So if we put trust in the general conference, if we put trust in anything, if we put trust in the church, if we put trust in the pastor, if we put trust in the president, if we put trust in our leader, if we put trust in the president, if whoever we put, President Joseph Gosen is my president. So whoever we put trust in, let's just be real. We will fail. We will fail.
Our trust is the, what you're saying, our trust only, the only power that we can trust is godly power, not a human power. And to me, this is an explanation. So the answer is an explanation, because if you understand why, it's because their hearts were filled with selfishness, greed, they became their own gods.
And so this is very powerful, because this is what we need to understand. So Habakkuk, when he was writing these verses, what was his first verses about? His first verses were not about some Babylonians who came and started to do some horrible things in Israel. What Habakkuk was saying, he was saying, our Israelites, our own, are mistreating each other. So God, you see, we are mistreating each other. Our own, within these two groups, which is Pharisees and Sadducees, left and right, they're mistreating each other. They're creating horrible things between us. And now let's put it into right. Let's make it right. And here is another third party outside. It's not a party, it's a country who comes and invades now. And finally, some people say, you see, they will make it right. And God said, no, this will never happen. So you see, don't try to do it. So this is just because it will bring even more calamity. So that is what is happening here. It's just, if we try, our own are not making it right. And if you expect that the third one will make it right, it will also fail. It will all fail. So now let's take a look at the next response. So you see, we move to the next element. Now Habakkuk once again. So just like us, so he asks a question. When will it happen? Then Lord says, there will be another evil, even more evil than the first one. It's just the reality of existence. And then Habakkuk responds again. So can somebody read these verses?
Are you not from of old, O Lord my God, my Holy One? You shall not die. O Lord, you have marked them for judgment, and you, O Rock, have established them for punishment. Your eyes are too pure to behold evil, and you cannot look on wrongdoing. Why do you look on the treacherous and are silent when the wicked swallow those more righteous than they? You have made people like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. The enemy brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his seine, so he rejoices and exults.
Okay, and listen.
Therefore he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to the seine. For by them his portion is lavish, and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his net and destroying the nations without mercy? I will stand at my watchpost and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what he will say to me and what he will answer concerning my complaint.
So you see, here's another complaint. What do you see in this complaint? What do you see in this complaint? So first complaint, This does make sense. You have a response. Babylonians are coming. And then another complaint. What do you see in this complaint now? What do you see in this complaint? Yes. please.
I read it as kind of almost the initial prayer is, we need vengeance against our oppressors. That's fine, I'll oppress your oppressors. But what happens to the original oppressed? There's just now more of us. The people that were oppressing us are now as oppressed as we are. We're all caught up in this horrible violence.
That's exactly it. That's exactly, and this is exactly what we see here. It's just, you see, why do you look now even more treacherous and are silent when wicked swallow those more righteous than they? So it's now there's a group that was very oppressed, another group that was evil, but now they're also a little bit less evil than the other group that is even more evil. So you see how many layers? So okay, very good point. Anything else? What else do we see? What else do we see here?
There's always this theme that the Lord is the rock. He's the one, you can see, or rock, have established and provides. We still rely on you. So he never loses that trust in the Lord, even though he's seen all this violence. He doesn't just say, all right, you're not present. He's continuing to talk and kind of like, I don't understand, but he continues to search for him.
So so Habakkuk sees this level. So this is very powerful. So Habakkuk sees this level of oppressors. One is oppressing another. So because it's true, it's just you saw oppressors, then another oppressor oppressing, but then another oppressor is oppressing the other oppressor. So there's levels, but then there's levels, multiple levels. But then there's rock. And you do not die. So you're rock all over above everyone. And then look what happens next. He writes, this is very critical also for us to understand. 14. You have made people like what? So like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. So later in the New Testament, this will be translated to make it sound better, like sheep without a shepherd. They're like sheep without a shepherd. Because Habakkuk was like, I'm done with making it nice. I'm writing it the way it needs to be written. You're like crawlers with no ruler. Jesus would say, no, you're like sheep without the shepherd. So, but this is what he says. And then look what happens next. The enemy brings all of them up with a hook. So you're like sheep, you're like fish without main fish. So you're easily what? Easily caught. But if it was with a hook, that would have been nice. Because this is what he continues and says. But no, he drags them out with his net. So what is net? What do you do with the net? You just toss a net and then it falls and grabs more. But no, he says, he gathers them in his seine. Do you know the difference between seine and a net? Seine is a drag net. When you and I will just have a huge net, and then you and I will walk and we will just catch as many fish as possible. You see what is the difference between now these three ideas? First, he says, the enemy brings all of them with a hook. I wish it was just a hook. No, he throws a net. Oh, I wish it was a net. He actually uses a drag net. So the injustice that is done is just, they don't care about crawlers. They don't care about fish. They just drag them with the what? With the drag net. As many people as possible. And then look what happens. And then they give sacrifices to their net and make offerings to their dragnet. For by them, his portion is like, this is how they became rich. And their food is rich now. Is he then to keep emptying his net and destroying nations without mercy? Do you see what is happening in Habakkuk? He says, look at all of these empires that catch people with the hook, and then they toss a net. But that is not enough for them. what these empires do, and any empires, they create drag nets and they try to catch as much fish as possible. And what do they do at the end of the day? They make sacrifices to their nets now, because this is how they enrich themselves. This is how they want to be wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. Yes.
For me, it is dehumanization. There's no sense of identity. We all walk around thinking about ourselves, and we take pride in who we are and what we stand for. And what Habakkuk is saying is, when you look at the way the world is organized, none of us really matters. We're all dehumanized, and we have no sense of identity. We're just like fish. No, no nothing.
So critical, because this is exactly why during Holocaust these verses were read and deeply felt and understood. Look what is happening.
And the process was the humanization of a group.
There is no humans. They are no humans. They're just rats. Literally. This is how Nazi Germany would use, this is the exact wording that they would use. They are rats. So what we need to do, we need to exterminate them. But the problem is that the oppressed often become the oppressors, because there's another layer and another layer and another layer. Yes.
You're thinking about Auschwitz with this. Like, these were a people, or they are a people that believed they were the chosen people. And they had their 600 and some odd laws, and they kept everything as perfect as possible. And they ended up in a situation that was like is one of the most historic and horrific things that have ever happened. So the psychology of like doing it all so right, and it ended up so wrong, and work would make them free, but it wasn't ever going to make them free. And it makes me also think about like my mother-in-law, who she did everything right her whole life, ate really well, perfection, and got cancer. It's not fair. It doesn't reconcile. And I think the psychology of that is so awful and hard, and there's no explanation.
But you see, the book of, so how, what do we see? How does the book of Habakkuk trying to answer these questions? Who are the ones who are the oppressors? Who are the ones who are doing all these things? Is it God who is just manipulating all this world and says, you know what? I will manipulate Nazis so that you can learn the lesson. I want you to learn the lesson, Ukrainians. So let's Russians attack Ukrainians. What? No, because it's what Habakkuk is saying very clearly. He says, this is how the world functions. Oppressors are everywhere. Let's take a look at ourselves. When I oppress my little children, my girls, by trying to say that I love them, but I force them to do things that I sometimes think that they need to do. I mean, I'm not that extreme. I love them to the point of, but you know, but you know what I mean? Sometimes when because we cannot control ourselves, so we start manipulating other people just because we feel, and let's just be real. The first stage is always we want to get rich, don't we? Like the first step is just, when will I get to 6-digit salary? Yes. This is basically the first goal. And then when we surpass that first goal, then the second goal, of course, is probably 6 or 7 digits. For some people, but once they reach that, money don't matter. What matters is, how can I control masses? How can I control people? And then when we talk about all these worldly oppressors like Putin and others, their main goal is, because they don't care about wealth, because it's zero care about. So now they want to control millions, because if I control millions, this is how I exercise my human superiority.
When Habakkuk says the wicked surround the righteous, he's saying the children of Israel are righteous. They don't deserve any of this. They made some bad choices that is coming back to haunt them. I mean, what is he saying here? Look, we are totally innocent. We're better than them. How do you square that?
So yeah,
Because, you know, when we look at it, I mean, God is all powerful, right? And he's all caring. But I think God limits his power by the choices we make. You can't have it both ways, right? We can't make choices and then say, God, you know, you're all powerful, release me of my consequences.
yeah, this is a very important, because what we need to understand very clearly is just these people who are oppressing, this is their choice. So they oppress, and unfortunately, as of right now, other people cannot do anything at all because this oppressor is just the oppressing is happening.
So when I look at it, he's saying in one of the texts here, you know, we are better than them. We are more righteous than they are. We're more innocent than they are. When people were also, you know, doing child sacrifice, they were doing some pretty bad things.
Yeah, so we will come to the why he says about themselves righteous. We will see it in one, like right now, basically the next verse. So then here is the next response. So right after this, we hear. So right after this second complaint. So once we see the next complaint, then here's the response of Yahweh. So can somebody read this response of Yahweh? It's just 4 verses.
Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that a runner may read it.
So just a second. So imagine this is, do you see what is very critical? Make it so big that then when a person runs, as the person runs, when he glances on this tablet, that person can immediately read it. So do you see how major this message is?
So make it a billboard.
Exactly. Yes.
For there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. I will surely come, it will not delay. Look at the proud. Their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by their faith.
And then last verse.
Moreover, wealth is treacherous. The arrogant do not endure. They open their throats wide as steel. Like death, they never have enough. They gather all the nations for themselves and collect all people as their own.
So what do you see in this response? This is the last response, and then there's woes. What do you see in this response? Then the Lord said, make a billboard. And make sure that everybody sees that billboard. If it seems very, wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay. Here is the billboard. Look at the proud. Their spirit is not just or right in them, but righteous. Answering the question. But the tzaddik or righteous, those who are righteous, live by their faith. Fullness or faith or faithfulness or trust. And then the message continues. Wealth is treacherous. The arrogant do not endure. They open their throats wide as hell. Like death, they never have enough. Because wealth is not enough for them. They're arrogant. They try to collect and combine and just make it larger for themselves. They even gather all nations one by one for themselves and collect all peoples as their own.
Collection.
So
So what is living by faith means? I have no idea.
Okay, so let's unpack this. So this is the message that is also repeated in Romans 1:17, Galatians 3:11, and Hebrews 10:38. So what is that? What does it mean now then? So in the midst of this, and this is the message that God says himself. He says, no, I want you to understand something very critical. You want to be just? If you say that you are just, this is the only requirement that I expect of you. Because there is one difference between just and unjust. Proud, their spirit is not right in them. Righteous, they live by faith. There's only two groups, proud and righteous. So what does it mean to righteous live by faith? This is the definition of righteous. If you're righteous, then you live by faithfulness. Because the word that is used here is faithfulness. It's just faithfulness, by faithfulness, by their faithfulness. So what does it mean? Help me.
How about you telling us?
I said, help me.
I asked you.
No, this is very, very important. It's just so the righteous. So you see, tzaddik, right? The meaning of the word righteous means tzaddik. Tzaddik is basically the one not holy, not holy. It's not a holy person. It's just the person who is standing on the right side of history, on the right side of all of what is happening around them. They live by the faithfulness to the what? Exactly. Faithfulness in God. And faithfulness, the meaning of the word faithfulness here means trust. So just basically at the end of the day, the only thing that remains is trust in God. This is easier said than done. Because who of us trusts in God more than in 401k? Let's just be real, or Roth IRA, whatever that may be. Who of us trusts more in God than in Wall Street that everything should be okay? Well, especially when we retire. Like, who trusts what? Let's just be real. So it's easier than said than done. Yes, please.
So I'm wondering, this sort of God pointing out to Habakkuk that he wasn't trusting enough. Habakkuk is saying, oh, we're righteous and we're surrounded by other people. Is it kind of saying like, hey, you're not trusting me, you're not as righteous as you think?
This is a very interesting point. That's very, very important. Perhaps.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So just very. So could you say it again loudly? So Habakkuk is saying.
So in the beginning, Habakkuk says the righteous are hemmed in by
other oppressors.
Yeah, the oppressors. And is this response sort of saying you're not as righteous as you think you are? Because, like you said, there's levels of oppression.
That's right. So basically, sometimes when we think that we are righteous, but we still put our trust in whom? In some person who will come and free us. But that's not going to happen.
Or ourselves, something we do.
Or sometimes that we do. Yeah, exactly. We will make an alliance with another group or with another person, or I will do something because I can achieve it. No. Here it's very clear. No, it's going to fail. Yes, please.
Going back to the Lord's answer in verse 5, when he starts talking. So Habakkuk has, been very vocal about everything that's going on, but God says, behold ye among the heathen and regard and wonder marvelously, but I will do a work in your days, which ye will not believe though it be told you. He's saying, you're not going to believe it, even though I tell you exactly what's to come. He did that over and over and over again. To me, it's expressing his frustration as well with them. You're not going to believe it, even though I tell you what it is.
That's right.
And then he finally, and then he comes to what we need to do, which, is the just shall live by faith. Well, it's one thing to hear that. It's a whole nother thing to live that.
Yeah.
How difficult it is to live that, though he has told us repeatedly.
Very good point.
Like, you won't even see, even if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. It's trusting God to work.
And this is very, very critical. It's just because when we look at also this trust, so trust is one very critical element. And then if you look at the definition of faith, for them, faith is, because you see, trust means that it's you trust in something that you do not see, and you may never see it. You see, just you trust in something that you do not see, and you may never even see it. So how can you trust in something that you do not see? This is what he asks you to do. Trust, even though you don't see it.
Yeah, but in a practical sense, though, like how do you do that? Like you get up in the morning and you say, "Oh God, I'm gonna trust you," and then you're done. Or how does that work? I guess it doesn't work for me.
So Habakkuk will. So we will see the response right now.
Sure, the end,
We will see it. We will see it. We will see it right at the end. So a very quick comment, and then
The others will trust in a different levels of standards, different standards. You know, the ones
People,
of
wealth,
the
some others,
different
yes.
standards of behavior. But the trust, God wants us to execute is to trust in Him, in God.
Mhm.
Trust God no matter what. God is love. That's what we need inside of us. Love one another.
Yes.
Love one another and to love God. You know,
We will.
just this is it.
Perfect.
This is the standard.
Another standard. So he is given another standard.
I think John's question is a good one, or it's a good one. How do we trust? To me, my experience, articulating that thought in my mind, in my prayer, in my petition to God. God, I want to trust you. I am in a circumstance, whether of my making or not, and I do not see a way out. I trust you. I want to trust you to guide me through this. What are the pillars that he provides for us? My experience is when I say to God, I want to trust you, he then provides me with little nuggets along the way. I may be talking to someone and they say something, or they read a song, or they offer a prayer, or something that helps me on my journey. And they may not even know that they are doing that for me. But the fact that I am telling God, I want to trust you, also means that I want to trust you to help me in the process. He's not asking us to trust and just you're on your own, go figure it out. He's saying, if you trust me, I will guide you. So keep your eyes open and look for that guidance.
Yeah, this is, and in the New Testament, it was stated when, remember, it's in the New Testament, it says to try, have faith that to those who trust in him, everything works for the good. And it doesn't mean that he will correct and everything. It's just the person, if you trust, along the way, you will identify and find this.
Market will help you.
Exactly. That will bring
We have a comment from the home audience. Elmer,
okay.
you there?
Hi, this is actually Barbara. And I wanted to say, when it comes to faithfulness and trust, a practical way to apply this that makes it easier for me is to think about our trust relationship with our spouse. You know, we pledge to be faithful when we get married, and we all have our expectations of what that means and of how our spouse will act, how we will act. So if you take that same thought process and apply it to your relationship with God, you know, I expect him to be faithful this way. I'm going to be faithful this way. One way to be faithful is to spend time together. You know, so to do what you say you're going to do. And so to me, you just take that same thought and apply it to your relationship with God, and that makes it easier to analyze and apply.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So this we are concluding right now. So, but this is what we need to pay attention to. So this is the verse. This is the very verse that completely changed the course of history. So now we saw that Yahweh basically responds to Habakkuk, and then Yahweh provides 5 woes. 5 woes. First, he says, will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn, saying, woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion. How long must this go on? This is what Yahweh says now. Yahweh says, I am also crying with you, Habakkuk, because I did not create the world to see what is happening here now in the 21st century. This is not how I created it. But what we see is what we see. Will not your creditors suddenly arise, maybe? Will they not wake up and make you tremble and so forth and continues? Because you have plundered many nations, the peoples who are left will plunder you as well, for you have shed human blood. So just as he said that the Babylonians will rise, so now these are woes against who? Babylon themselves. So God says, I am in the same despair, Habakkuk, as you are. When I look at this world, it doesn't make sense to me also. I didn't create it the way it was supposed to be created. Now look at the next woe. Woe to him who builds his house by unjust gain. First it was wealth and how we accumulate wealth. Now how we build our homes. By unjust gain, by exploiting those who are building our homes and then throwing them out, setting his nest on high to escape the clutches of ruin. You have plotted the ruin of many peoples, shame and so forth. And then the next woe, woe to him who builds a city, not just home, but the nation, the city, with bloodshed and establishes a town by injustice. Has not the Lord Almighty determined that the people labor is only fuel for the fire? Because the Lord said himself, remember, the first curse that God gave to humanity was, you shall what? What is the first curse? You shall say it, don't be afraid. You shall work. The first curse is you shall work. But look how we did it. We said, no, your work is your vocation. It's your mission. You will do the work and we will prosper. You will do more work and we will prosper more. So look how amazingly we have done it. But the Lord himself looks at this, scratches his eyes and says, no, I didn't create this church this way. I didn't create this world this way. Profit should not drive you. If you create AI, make the life of the world better. Reduce the work week to 30 hours now, because we are more productive. Do not say, people, I don't need 1 million people, working people anymore. Why? Because I have AI who will do the work. No! Distribute the wealth equally. Give them more money. Let them enjoy their children finally, because our nations will be restored. Our nation will be restored. But the Lord is crying. And then this is basically, you see what they're saying? People say, your work is your vacation. Arbeit macht frei. It's the same statement. When you say your work is your vacation, you basically say the same. And I do say that in our mission integration at Advent Health University and beyond. And then what happens next? That's why it's a myth when we talk about wholeness in the workplace. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors. This is not the end yet. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskin till they are drunk. Look, there's another woe. Let me give you a drink. Let me give you a drink. Drink a lot. Because then you will start talking to me and you will reveal your nakedness. You will reveal all your secrets to me. And it will be very easy for me to manipulate you, because this propaganda works. That is exactly the reason in the book of Revelation quotes this very verses, and it says, remember, that the harlot of Babylon, she was pouring what? Wine to the nations. Why? What was that wine? It's the wine of propaganda. It's the wine that my way of thinking is my way of living. So this is what the Lord is saying. And this is the Lord. This is Yahweh. Woe to him. You will be filled with shame instead of glory because you do what you do. Because this propaganda is so evil. Now it is your turn. Drink and let your nakedness be exposed. This is the cup of wrath of God. He says, no, you drink now, and then let the world see your nakedness, how evil you are. Because when you drink, everybody will see how terrible you are. The cup from the Lord's right hand is coming around to you, and disgrace will cover your glory. And then look what then the violence you have done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and your destruction of animals will terrify you. Do you see what is happening? This is the Lord. This is what the Lord took to humanity, universal humanity. And then, for you have shed human blood. You have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Of what value is an idol carved by craftsmen, or an image that and so forth? And then he continues. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life. So this is it. And then look, Habakkuk listens to this and he's like, Lord, we need to create a group now. Just because it's just Injustice Anonymous. Just Injustice Anonymous group. Because look, so I'm not in the same camp, it looks like. Habakkuk looks at the Lord and says, oh no, you are suffering you're suffering more? You shed more tears than I do? This is what he sees. This is what Habakkuk sees. And then look at the response. Last chapter. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet. Shiganoth means shout out. Ah! She's just literally crying. Shiganoth, I'm crying. Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stood in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. So you see now the language changes right now. He sees how Lord is crying and suffering so deeply and immensely that he is just, and then he says, no more complaints. No, Lord, please don't cry. I see how great you are. You're still good. Look at this. I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. Lord, I have heard God came from Temnan. You came. You're powerful. Your splendor was like sunrise. You're not unjust. You're good, God. So you see what is happening now? Because he sees the pain of God. He sees the suffering and love of God. And then he's like, oh no. Plague went before him, and then continues. The ancient mountains crumbled and the age-old hills collapsed, but the march on forever. I saw the tents of Cushan fall and so forth, and then he continues, but then here is the end. I heard, and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones, and my legs trembled. Because of what I see around me and because of your glory, Lord. Yet I will wait patiently. Remember the billboard? Remember the billboard that he said, write this very clearly and write it very clearly. But remember the billboard? Yeah. John, do you remember the billboard?
Yeah.
What was that billboard? We need to see that billboard again.
The runner can see.
The runner, exactly. The runner can see it, like Oleg can see it. I just ran this week 80 miles, so this is not a joke.
You meant, yeah. All right.
So look, what is it? It's 2-4, yeah, there. Yeah. Look, so here's what. Number one, it's wait for it. Do you see the first billboard? It will surely come. It will not delay. Look at the proud. Their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by their faith. This is the billboard. Wait, righteous live by faithfulness. Do you see this billboard? Now, here is the response of Habakkuk. We're almost there. Here's the response of Habakkuk. Verse 16. Yet I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. Here is how I will practice my faithfulness. So I will wait, and here's how I will practice my faithfulness. Verse 17. Though The fig tree does not bud. Yet I do not build a big underground bunker. And there are no grapes on the vines. Yet I will not buy 30 years food supporting whatever that may be. Though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, and there is no steak anymore, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful when I have nothing and everything was taken away from me. The sovereign Lord is my strength, not what the other guys were saying. My might is my God. The sovereign Lord is my strength. My might is my God. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer, and I will be able to run into the mountains if I need to. He enables me to tread on the heights, jump from one to another, like Lynette. Yeah, on the heights. And this is it. You're done. So do you see, this is basically what Habakkuk is trying to tell us. Trust in the Lord. Yet, everything fails. He will give me the legs of the deer, and I will jump and run, and I will rejoice, even though olive trees are not bearing any fruits. Let's pray. Well, Father, thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to learn so much from this one tiny little book. And we see and hear how this book was transforming generations and generations. And right now we want this book to transform our lives. Help us not to be the oppressors, or help us not to see the oppressors who see other oppressors, but help us to learn how to trust in you, not in any place, not in ourselves, not in any person, not in any institution, not in any power that we see around us, but let us trust in you, because through you and in you, we can find true joy. Let us rejoice in the Lord, even though everything else fails. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Oleg.
So,
I was